very good idea. I think also when Muguna says that there are like two ways of impeaching a president, there can be, of course, be impeachment by parliament, but under Article 1, there is an impeachment by the people. And that is what also Fred was talking about. That is what Miguna was talking about. And again, that is according to the constitution. Even in the USA, it's very explicit in the constitution that the people, can say that we don't like this government, we have elected it, it is not serving us, and they have the right under the constitution to say that. And I think Booker also did explain how then you cure the problem that Fred identified. How do you replace the leadership? By saying that if there is an organization of all these democratic forces or this alternative people's power, if there is that kind of clear organization, then there can't be a vacuum like in Sudan, in the Arab Spring, or in many other places where there is a revolution, but it is premature, so to speak, because there is no organized leadership which stands for the reasons that there's been the revolution, the uprising, and so on. And therefore, there is urgency in terms of creating this bringing these democratic forces together, this alternative people's power together. There is urgency because if that is not done, and particularly if if it has started to emerge, to exist, I think was identified by Miguna, I think, then if it delays, then you are going to get the pretenders who already are going, saying that they are the opposite of Raila and Ruto. And the people will begin to buy that because they will not see any other possibility. So that is why I'm talking about agency. And I frankly think that if the leaders of the progressive leaders of these X spaces, I'm talking in this particular context, talking like Hillary, there is Redemptor, there are these leaders and there are many, and you know each other. You can actually identify who in these spaces has been consistent, and in terms of even activity, in terms of saying that we need to come together, the unity that also Fred talked about. That is something that is possible. It is not necessarily rocket science. And then there can be vetting of those individuals and the organizations that they stand for, and all that. And actually, even that convening can be done by the leaders of these X spaces. They can be done by the leaders of Gen Zs, when again they identify the progressive ones, like Joshua was saying, are identified. And that to me looks like a significantly neutral group to say we will convene you, and then we will talk together, and on that basis we will now be saying what is the people's charter or the people's manifesto, what who are now all these democratic forces, this alternative people's power, uh what kind of name, people will talk about that. And then groups which are progressive will begin to gravitate towards this kind of formation. So I think it is something that, for me, because it has done in the past, it was done during Mau Mau, to some extent during the 90s, and we have learned lessons about how things are hijacked, and so on, and so forth. So I think, as I learned, the ball really is in the court of people who say they want change in the country, and if they delay, others, I think, will play the ball. But I still do appreciate that there is also the organic element of people demonstrating clearly that they are on the side of the people, and from their history that they have done things that show that they have worked for people before, and all that kind of stuff. And we still must continue to be careful, even within the Gen Z movement, to be careful not to say that people have sold out, when there are also internal fights and stuff like that. We have to be careful about those things. And I think I learned.
Thank you very much, Prof, for all those insights. Always very instrumental listening to you with a lot of institutional memory in terms of how these things happened. I'm going to give the chance to Farah and then Tom Boya. But before then, I would like to invite my co-host, Abdi, if you have something to add or say. Then after that, Farah, then Tom Boya. Thanks, Abdi.
Thank you, Honorable Neto. I have nothing to add. Maybe I would ask Daktari if he wants to chime in anytime, and then I'll read a few comments later as we continue. Thank you.
Okay, so then before Dr. Miguna comes in, Farah and Tom Boya, and then Dr. Miguna in that order. Thanks, people.
Thank you, Neto. Am I audible?
Yes, you
Okay,
are.
thank you very much. First of all, I'm very, very happy that the conversation has turned to solutions, not no more lamenting, no more kulalamika. And I really liked Professor Ogola's presentation, because the truth is, sisi ndo makosa. We as the populace, we as the people are the problem. Until we start looking at things from a Kenyan perspective, from a nationalistic perspective, whereby we decide to take charge of where this country is going to go, and we understand from the most basic necessities, whereby it's our responsibilities to build and develop our motherland. And terms, we need to desensitize people from these large amounts of money, like billions. Unajua unatajua billion, unashangaa these amount of money, like as Dr. Miguna was saying, you say you want to be president, the first thing you ask is how much money do you have. The reality is, this money, billions are not a lot of money. For instance, JKIA was offering 30% of $2 billion, which is 78 billion Kenya shillings. Tukiamua kuchanga hiyo pesa as a people, it comes down to 1,393 shillings per person. Ukiambiwa 78 billion, it sounds astronomical. But if you're told we need 1,393 shillings from you, it's something that's very doable. And once we change our mentality from people who need foreign investors, and we become people, we have the mentality that we are self-sustaining and self-sufficient. Somalia and Somaliland, which Somaliland is unrecognized, Somalia is recognized, but the two countries, mifugo yao peke yake, their exports surpasses 45 billion Kenya shillings annually, and that is to the Middle East alone. Sisi mifugo yetu inataka kudungwa. It's not that we do not have the solutions, nor do we lack the resources. We have enough people of goodwill as well. What we need to do, as all of you who have spoken before me have said, is ensure that all these people of goodwill come together. Let us sing from one hymn book. You might be a communist, you might be a leftist, but we are facing an existential crisis as a country. It is time to bring everybody who desires change. Tuache kuongea. It's now time to start doing, because we might want to achieve everything, but the reality on the ground is, everywhere you look at it, unless we change the political scene, nothing is going to change. And the truth is, we have the same political players for over 35 years. Someone like Atwoli has been there since 1955, 1965. Yani 1 year after independence ameingia siasa, na leo bado yeye anatuambia kama maskini atakikani. Once we decide this, mimi sifikiri kama Msomali, Joshua afikiri kama whatever tribe he comes from, Miguna does not think as someone from the lake, and we all decide that kitu yote ambayo inahusu nchi, we think as Kenyans. Otherwise, we will always be back here complaining. There are a lot of people who are going to come back. One thing that Kivuda has said, na lazima mkubali, there is nobody coming to save you. Just as the Arabs built Dubai and all these things, it is your responsibility to develop your country and ensure that the next generation is standing on shoulders that are much broader. than the ones that we are currently standing on as a people. So thank you guys. But as everybody has said, put everything else aside. Let us rally towards Ruto must go. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you very much, Farah. Tomboya, you have the mic. Tomboya, are you able to hear us? If it's not, Abdi, you wanted to read a couple of things. Tomboya, you want to go now? Okay, Abdi, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Neto. I just wanted to bring to speed to Dr. Miguna. I think we recently drafted a people charter aimed at articulating the collective demands for Kenya for better governance, economic justice, accountability, inclusive leadership. I would like also to pose the question back to Daktari. How do you view the importance of such charter in uniting citizens toward a shared vision, and what steps will you recommend to ensure a practical tool for driving meaningful political and social transformation? Having said that, I will also leave you, Honorable Neto, to chime in on that charter we discussed in the previous space, and then we can give the mic to Dr. Miguna. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdi. And I think a couple of things are coming up right now, which I'm happy that with these constant conversations, things are getting to shape up. There's been the People's Charter, which Professor Kibwana has mentioned. Comrade Booker did mention it. And as a space, we've also discussed it and thought it through. The second issue that came up, which I think is also sharp and concise, is the issue of, a scorecard for candidates for 2027 or for whenever the next election is held, or, a code of conduct for which we really need to have our candidates measure up to. But the third one, which I think is urgent now, and it keeps coming up, is the urgent need in bringing the democratic forces together. So those three things, I'd like you to speak about them, both Dr. Miguna and Professor Kibwana. But also, there's a question that someone asked there, which I'd like to also make the fourth question. Is Kenya ready to go the Bangladesh way? Zero destruction of property and just destroying the tyrants.
Neto, can I have one comment before Miguna speaks? Maybe you can also answer it.
Okay, well, as long as you make it sharp, please just make it sharp so that at least we have all these five together. Then Professor Kibwana and Dr. Miguna can speak, and then we'll give the rest of the speaker as well. Thanks, Puka.
Now, I just wanted to say, maybe when you are dealing with the Bangladesh issue and its success, also it's important to interrogate the character of the Bangladesh uprising and the imperialist hands in their success. Because there is revolutions and there are also colored revolutions. For example, now some people are talking about a Syrian revolution. And then maybe I just wanted to tell Comrade Kivuta Kibwana that I have no personal hatred to him as my comrade. I just think that if we make mistakes, we should be called out. And when we come back, when our mistakes are called out, we should be humble enough to reply to those mistakes and even clarify. Because sometimes those accusations can be based on misunderstanding among comrades. And I totally believe that within the comradeship, we can resolve our differences through debates and not violence. So I hold no personal grudge to Professor Kivuda. I'm just calling people out of what I saw when I was with them, and they did not bother to explain. That's all, comrade.
Thank you very much, Comrade Puka. Dr. Miguna and Professor Kibwana, a fifth question has been added to this question in terms of when you were looking at the Bangladeshi revolution, what was the character, what was the imperialist influence? So Dr. Miguna, you go first, then Professor Kibwana. Thank you so much.
Actually, Honorable Nato, I did not hear your second, third, and fourth question. But I did not hear the others. And of course, I've heard Booker's comments.
Okay, so the first one was the People's Charter that
that one,
that you had, yeah? That you had, okay. The second is the need for a scorecard for candidates for the next election or a code of conduct. And then number three the urgent need of bringing together the democratic forces. What tenure? What would be the tenure? The methodology, or what text would it take? What would be the context? Number 4, is Kenya is ready to go the Bangladeshi way with zero destruction of property, but just destroying the tyrants. And then, of course, number 5, what was the context of the Bangladeshi revolution? Is that okay, Prof? Is that okay, Doctor?
Yeah.
Thanks. Please go ahead then, Professor Kiban, after you. Thanks.
So I will attempt to speak briefly about 1, 2, 4, and 5. 1, on the People's Charter. For a People's Charter to be, my view is that for a People's Charter to be, number 1, understood, appreciated, and accepted more or less generally by the people, their input need to be integrated in the Charter. I do not know myself who drafted the Charter or where it was drafted, and I've not been able to provide an input on the Charter. And I know there are many people like me. So I would not want to talk about something that I've not interacted with. It is important that we interact with the draft. I always say the person who frames the issues or the questions determines the answers. So if a group of people sat and conceived of issues and answered them, then obviously they are the ones who came up with the charter. It may well be that it's broadly representative of the general aspirations of the people, but I've not been able to interrogate that. 2, I believe that the issues that affect Kenyans and for which they are struggling against are understood by the majority of the people. I also believe that you do not need the agreement or concurrence of everyone to be able to execute a liberation movement for their benefit. There is no unanimity in any community or society, and Kenya is not an exception. Number 2, on the need for a scorecard or code of conduct, this one I don't believe is relevant, in the sense that we already have a constitution with chapter 6, which has integrity provisions, which with expectations of what leaders can or cannot or should not do. And to me, that is sufficient. I do not know who it is that will arrogate himself or herself with the mandate of drafting another one apart from what is already contained in the Constitution. And I do not know the mandate this group or person will have over the so-called leaders, or who will have appointed them leaders. And this is because my understanding of a revolution may be different from what other people understand. There are a lot of people in a rush to say they are leaders, they are running for elections. I do not know who appointed them. I do not know where they were elected as leaders. I do not know who told them that they are the best suited candidates to run for the presidency. And I do not know who told them the presidency is the most important thing right now for Kenyans. Because a revolution is not about the presidency. A revolution is not about who will be considered the leader for everyone. A revolution, first and foremost, is aimed at overhauling the existing structures and transforming them to become pro. And during the process of overhauling and restructuring the system, a leader will emerge. To me, that is a better approach. You do not put the cart before the horse. I have seen people declare they're running, And a lot of these people, I can confess, have not been involved in the transformation of Kenya. A lot of them are my age mates, and they were not fighting against Moi. They never did. They were not fighting the one-party state. They did not fight tribalism under Kibaki or corruption under Kibaki. And even right now, since Uhuru became president and now Ruto, they have not fought against human rights violations. All they have been focused about are contracts, tenders in government, and that these tenders were not processed the way they are supposed to be. To me, that's a side issue. Anybody who is focused on money matters and not on human rights violations do not know the heart of this constitution. This constitution is not about tenders. This constitution is not about contracts. This constitution is actually not about the economy. This constitution is about human rights, the basic dignity of a Kenyan. If you do not understand that, you cannot lead the people, because everything is about the people. We cannot have an economy without the people. The economy is built by the people. And a people who are tortured, who are abducted, who are killed, cannot develop an economy. So that's where my focus is. The heart of the Constitution of Kenya is the Bill of Rights, not any other part of it. The Bill of Rights is what keeps the Constitution together. And if you don't adhere to the Bill of Rights, everything else falls apart. So that's my opinion. And I believe it is a correct opinion, because you cannot lead a people who are tortured. Number 4, the issue of Bangladesh. Number 4 and number 5 are connected. So whether or not we go the Bangladeshi way, I do not know actually what that means, but if I understand it correctly, I believe it seeks to find a way of the mode of carrying out the revolution. Should it be on the street by the people from all generations, marching to remove an oligarchical regime from power so that they have an opportunity to transform their country? I believe that 100%. These people may have different reasons for doing it. And these people may not be from one ideological orientation. But what they want, as I said, is basic dignity for their citizens and for their taxes to go towards prosperity for the majority of the people. They want dignity, they want rule of law, they want human rights respected, and they want to take control of their country and steer it to whatever direction that the majority of the people aspire to. I fully embrace that. Now, in Bangladesh, this movement was largely led by the students, university students, like most movements in the world. In Cuba, it was also led by mainly university students. In many, many other parts of the world, it's been led by either university students or former university students, but generally the youth that have a clear ideological orientation, of course, with the participation of other members of society. So I fully embrace that. And I think, yes, that is a persuasive orientation of a movement that I think can be embraced and emulated by Kenyans. To Comrade Buka's question, I do not know the answer, which is the honest truth. I actually do not know the answer. I have not done an analysis that I say will be persuasive to Buka or to anybody else. A struggle is an ongoing process. If you wait until you think you have analyzed all the issues, all the factors, and you have arrived at a bulletproof answer, then you will wait until Jesus comes. And I don't know when that is. So we don't have that latitude. We don't have that luxury, and we shouldn't wait until all these questions are answered. And not everyone, Buka, will look at these issues from a Leninist Marxist lens. And we have to accept that there is no one answer for all these questions, and that we cannot arrogate ourselves the power to dictate to everyone that our answer is the best. I accept that we are all limited as human beings, and that what we may think as the best answer may not be persuasive to all the people. But we all agree that Ruto is a disaster. That one we agree. We all agree that Kenya should be a democratic state governed by the rule of law. That we agree. We all agree that plunder and we all agree that tribalism and nepotism should be things of the past. We all agree of that, about that. We also agree that the basis of anyone excelling in Kenya should be based on integrity, on the ability, their skills and ability, resourcefulness, and innovation to be able to contribute to the national good. That we generally agree on. If we agree on those, we should be able to organize ourselves around those pillars and should not necessarily be dogmatic about our political ideologies, because we need progressives, including the liberals, including those who just adhere to the rule of law and constitutionalism and have integrity, but are not socialist. All right? I do agree with you that capitalism is a problem and is the greatest problem. But it exemplifies itself in different permutations, and that a lot of people in Kenya, unfortunately, have been made to believe that it is the only way. Unfortunately, it will take time, and I think this is where Mao Zedong defeated us. It took him time to re-educate the people. Of course, some aspects of the re-education were brutal, and those ones we would want to avoid. But re-education will take a long time. It's not something that we will do in 1 month, in 2 months, in 1 year, in 2 years, or in 5 years. It will be a process. But what I would like us to do is to agree on these broad principles of overhauling the system that exists today, transforming it, and managing our affairs in a way that dignifies and gives life to citizenship and what it means for the Africans, the natives that call Kenya their country. That's where I land.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miguna, for those words. Very kind. I think you stopped short of giving Comrade Buka a jurisprudential answer of it depends. Analyzing the revolutions cannot be, singularly looked at, but it depends on who is looking at it and what theories. But Professor Kibwana, you have more wisdom than we do. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure this is common wisdom that we are trying to generate. I just want to say, for example, in an earlier submission, I think I did talk about the way to bring, the democratic forces together. and I thought the way in which it can be identified even through the X spaces, and some vetting, and by the also Gen Z leadership, the progressive one. I think from the beginning of this movement, it is clear, who has been involved and in which ways, and that's easy to say. The people in the X spaces, some people in the civil society, some people in academia, whatever, all those places, our social justice centers, and you can identify that some of the progressive political parties, that is something that can be done. And in actual fact, I think it would just probably take a day to do so, because people have been involved, and it's known, how and who has been so involved. Yes, there was the People's Charter. There was also William Mutunga's Article 1 movement. And even when you go historically, Mau Mau, KPU Manifesto, some of the work of NCA, NCC, there are very many movements which have done this work. And if, again, even within 1 week, people are asked to, bring those documents to the fore, summarize them, and see through all of them what how can you get a draft which now will be socialized, as Miguna was saying, because you can't just write it and then say that's it. It has to have, like that broad convening, and then even taking it to now, the rest of Kenya, and using it as a mobilizational tool, as part of, civic education, political education, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a process, and it's the process which really begins to say that this is how the new Kenya, will look like, and the people's input is very important within it. So again, that is something that is doable. I think in terms of the political education, which really must be very thorough in the 1450 wards, and I keep on saying this, and even the code of conduct, yes, there is, as Miguna said, within the constitution there is chapter 6 and so on, but sometimes you break it down so that you say, next time now you're electing leaders, why not look at these 10 things or whatever it is, so that it's like a summary of, what is in chapter 6, and other ethical, moral, whatever principles, so that people move away from the tribalism they are told, and these are the don'ts, like tribalism, like if you're given money and all that kind of stuff. And the young people have the ability, to do this thing. And that's why I was talking about getting Gen Zs in the rural areas, getting Gen Zs and millennials in the people settlements and so on. So those are things that can be done. And when, of course, if there is that convening of people, the democratic forces together and so on, within that context and within that debate, of course, people of superior ideas will get those superior ideas accepted in that context. Superior in terms of, how they will change our, condition as a country. And that begins to be a place for ideas, being sharpened and all that. And we get the ideas to move the country forward. My understanding of how also leadership in these movements emerges is people come to work together. When they come to work together because they are like-minded, they are broadly speaking like-minded, as Miguna has tried to explain, then there is actually group leadership. And even as people work, it will be evident who is good in what and so on, who who can mobilize people in particular ways, who is good in writing certain documents, who is good in terms of being eloquent in public meetings, and all those things manifest themselves, and that is evident in many situations where there has been change. So that is an organic thing, and even eventually, even if you have, first of all, a government is a huge thing, and even if you are, and it's not just government, it's leadership in all spheres of the country, and eventually even a president in a properly democratic situation is just first among equals. And if that is not clear, then again we go back to the Messiah business, the Messiah business. And I think there's one point, and then I learned with the last point, the point of, I think it was Milton, Dr. Milton, who said that many people are already beginning to campaign like for 2027, and it is like evidence of the government. They know that the government will not come back, the regime will not come back, and therefore they want to be the senators, governors, MPs, maybe some even MCS, I don't know. But you see, that is also strategy. You can look at it in a different way. It is strategy, because Ruto knows that if you don't win parliament, and if you don't win the counties, and even if you want the president, you stall it, then you would still be weak. So there is no reason why you can't tell some of his guys, go and get those seats. And if I want to appoint you again in ministries, I will withdraw you, appoint you, and then we shall still fill your positions with the people that we want. And therefore, it also means that if this movement wants to also be able to have the majorities, people have to work in terms of having dominance in parliament, that's National Assembly, Senate, having dominance in the the MCA staff. So that's why it's hard work, and that's why like Muguna said, there is no luxury of time. And so if there are political parties which will be political parties that are progressive and they will work together, other organizations also coming into this big democratic tent of progressive, like-minded, broad united democratic front, so that it is clear that there will be a majority. Because if there is no majority, then it means that you can be sabotaged easily, and it can be impossible or very difficult to run a government. And you see, the stronger you become, then you begin to get, if there is this movement that it is clear to the people that this is what they've been waiting for, then some of those other groups also begin to there are groups which begin to say that we can't, for example, if it is the police, even the military, some of them will begin to say that things are changing, therefore we can't do some of the things that we used to do because this group is being supported so much by the people. You see, those are the dynamics, when you are being pragmatic, that you have to, I think, think about. And so finally, as I learned, Comrade Buka, just to say, then you didn't know that, I was not thinking or expecting that KLM would make me a presidential candidate. Actually, as of now, I'm not even a member of a political party. And of course, Buka, rightly so, as they said, that he is interested in the candidature of Omtata, and that's still fine. So that those people who are interested in the progressive people, it is just time of, all of those to come together, and, we make sure that the agenda is really a people's agenda, and we do the hard work, and we influence each other so that all the good ideas, come to the fore, as happened in Mau Mau, Jaramogi, tried that. It was not easy for him. NCNCC tried that, and other movements, and the Gen Z movement. And we, with the young people, the Joshuas and so on, we go forward. And I learned.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the kind words and the wisdom. We are honestly grateful. We're having a next set of speakers, Dr. Boni, Dr. Milton, and Mkenya Daima in that order. Dr. Boni, you want to go? Thanks.
Yes,
Thank you.
I would
Hope you
like,
can hear
I'd
me.
like to also to acknowledge Babu Al-Amin Kimathi. Anytime you can ask for the mic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Abdi. Thanks, Abdi, for that. Dr. Boni, Milton, and then Mkenya Daima. Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. So to me, on the question of whether we are ready to go the Bangladeshi way, I think we have no choice as a nation. I think that change is inevitable, and this is what I mean. When you think about what transpired in Bangladesh, it was the average citizen rejecting totally what they've been told by their leaders as the character of their nation. A country where 3,500 citizens can disappear without an explanation. A country where 2% of the population consume virtually all the resources without any shame. A country where the government does not function. A country where politics, business, the justice system, and virtually every important sector of the society is dominated by criminals and crooks. And what we are facing in Kenya is not different from that. I mean, we are looking at the same situation. We engage in trying to answer the question collectively of who are we as a nation? Who are we known for? Who do we want to be? Do we want to be a country where we are dominated by criminals, where we appoint thieves into office, or we elect thieves into office who come and appoint criminals into office, where a government uses its office and authority to steal from the most vulnerable among us, where we have a government of thieves, by thieves, and for thieves, as I like to call it, where the president, for example, can appoint known thieves of public resources like Evans Kidero, Operanya, Nanok, all these people that steal billions from their counties. As soon as they're done, as opposed to being prosecuted and jailed, we put them into state house and the cabinet. A country where institutions such as our parliament, the EACC, etc., do not function. A country where justice and economic opportunities are sold to the highest bidder. A country where the average citizen, because of poverty, has absolutely no rights because it costs money in our country to be able to have rights. That's what we're trying to answer collectively. Many people may not know this, but in my view, the election that we're going to have in 2027 is about answering that question for all of us. Who do we want to be, right? There is a small fraction of our population that's 100% okay with the status quo. They're happy with what's happening. But 90%, 98% of Kenyans do not subscribe to that. We don't believe that we should have a government where people are picked up in the middle of the street in broad daylight for doing nothing other than criticize their government. We criticize our government because we want it to be better. We want it to reflect our values. We want it to do justice by the people. We don't want a government that's giving up our airport in the middle of the night on a deal with a criminal enterprise out of India. And they tell us that if you oppose that, you don't want development. They tell you, they ask an average citizen, why are you complaining about Adani when you don't even use the airport? I mean, this is where we are as a country. And so, you know, you've all heard me talk about where we are economically as a country, where we're spending 60% of our tax revenues to service debt on just to make payments just on interest alone, on debt that the average citizen did not benefit from. And when we are doing this, that means that we are spending money on debt that did not benefit Kenyans, as opposed to spending that money to educate that 20-year-old that just completed high school, as opposed to employing the nurse or doctor who just graduated, as opposed to building our roads and our infrastructure, employing young and most productive Kenyans, as opposed to sending them abroad to be nannies. I mean, our government today is running around holding press conferences, showing Kenyans applying for jobs to be nannies in Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you imagine that? Imagine any government that you respect, take your US or Australia. Can you imagine a government that focuses its efforts on recruiting its most productive citizens to go and become nannies in other jurisdictions? It's a shame, but that's where we are. So what I'm saying is, from an economic standpoint, I think that the current trajectory is just not sustainable. Something has to give. We cannot continue spending our resources to service debt that only benefited a few corrupt people in our country. The issues that the government was trying to solve by introducing the taxes that you all saw in June through the finance bill of 2024, all those issues exist, right? We are still a country where we run on budget deficits every year. We add about a trillion to our debt. That has not gone away. We are highly taxed people, but we are people that do not actually benefit from our taxes because if I poll the people that are on this call, I will bet 95% of us that have children are actually not sending our children to our schools, to our public schools. We send our kids to private schools. When you're sick or when your child is sick, you don't see Kenyatta Hospital as your first choice of a healthcare facility. Why is that? It's because we don't trust our government to deliver anything, right? We pay our taxes and yet we get nothing from the government. We are not investing in our young people. And so I say all this to say that the people that have the most to lose from what's happening right now are the young people. I'm not saying they have to be the leaders, but I think that we all have a stake, right, in make sure that we get a country that functions, a country that is a country that respects human rights, a country that's investing in young people and the future of our country. But none of us have a higher stake, in my view, than young people, right? Because if you are 20-year-old in Kenya right now, and instead of you getting an education, you're spending money on servicing debt that did not benefit you. There is a former governor that has 10 billion in his bank account today, earning interest, and we are paying money for him to be able to keep that 10 billion, as opposed to you to school education and become a productive member of our economy. If you're a young doctor or nurse that just graduated, and you're always on the streets trying to be treated fairly, trying to get a decent income, you have more to lose or gain by fixing what's wrong in our country, which is the character of our nation. So I say that to say that we don't have a choice. I think that the current trajectory cannot sustain itself. It cannot continue. But young people have to realize they have more to gain or lose than anyone else. And so get invested in this, get involved in defining the character of our nation, which is not what we are told it is right now. We are not a country where 2% have to eat up everything, where we are dominated by criminals in every sector of our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boni. Dr. Milton?
Um, I want to pick up from where Bonnie has left, but I think the most important thing is I agree with Dr. Miguna's sentiments. There are a lot of the things that Kenyans are tired of. We do not need any script from anywhere. An oppressed people have just one character. They have to rise up against the oppressor. And that is where we are as a country. And the greatest challenge that we must deal with is how we mobilize our people, how we get the people to be on the streets, to send out, to send home and to jail all the looters. Um, Professor Ogola's description of who we are as a country, that we are a country that has two distinct groups. We have a few looters who are masquerading as leaders, and the rest are the looted. That should be the clarion call that we make to every individual out there. And so that we will then be able to achieve the kind of economic liberation that our country needs, that our people need. The lies, the character of the people that must begin, if that hasn't happened already, to coalesce and caucus is a people who are of integrity, a people that can put service delivery for fellow Kenyans ahead of everything else. Because right now, what we are seeing, and like Kigame said, Ruben, a minute more with Ruto and his um, cheerleaders in office is one too long, because all they are doing is about coalescing with the singular view of taking more and more and protecting that which they have stolen. And Kenyans must not allow that to continue. Our people, I think what we need to discuss right now is how do we mobilize our people? And Professor Kibwana gave us what I think is a timeline of by March next year. What exactly are we looking at? How do we move from where we are to delivering that Bangladeshi moment? That for me is the that is the $1 million question that we need to ask ourselves. Otherwise, we all agree, and Dr. Miguna enumerated everything that we agree on. Now, what we need to ask ourselves is how do we get the 2 million people on the streets who will not leave until William Ruto and the entire political cartel goes home. And at that point in time, I want to agree with Dr. Miguna that leadership will emerge. Successful revolutions have not been from a situation where people call themselves leaders of revolutions. Successful revolutions have given birth to leaders, and that is how even the African Renaissance and the fight against the colonial powers in Africa was successful because the people wanted one thing, and when that one thing was achieved, leadership emerged, and progressive leadership, for that matter. And we need to be able to bring our people to that point where the rural folk that are being given 200 shillings to attend rallies and wanapigia Ruto Makofi and others, those are the people we need to target with our messaging. Those are the people that we need to baptize. And so that when they are converted already, we will achieve the kind of outcomes that we need. And I have spoken here before that if you believe in the Bible, the walls of Jericho, there is a very clear process how those walls fell. Of course, there was divine intervention, and we also believe in divinity. We believe in the existence of a supernatural being that gives us the power. I do believe that if we trade our guns and point them against this autocratic regime under William Ruto, from State House all the way to the lowest of the lowest wards in the country, we will be able to send them home. We don't need to procrastinate. We should have clarity. And the People's Charter is contained in the Constitution. And we have, I think when we had this space, we enumerated what those aspirations that the people have given themselves are. You would find it clearly articulated in the preamble of the Constitution. You will find it articulated in chapter 6. You will find it articulated in the different chapters that establish the legislature, the judiciary, and even the executive. And you will find all these things listed in Article 232 of the Constitution on the principles of public service. And Dr. Miguna summed it up very well, that if you do not understand the Bill of Rights of our Constitution, then you have no business trying to talk about leadership, trying to talk about anything else, because the Constitution talks about the dignity of the Kenyan people and puts the people right at the center of everything that happens when it comes to exercise of power, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to what outcomes are expected from whoever is given the privilege to exercise power on behalf of the people. And if
But
you do not understand anything, then read Article 43 of the Constitution on the socio-economic rights of the Kenyan people. That sums it up, and that is what constitutes the People's Charter. All we need to do is to mobilize our people and give them the confidence that when the people's fear is gone, those in power will be running because there will be no space for looters in our country.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Doc.
much. Abdi, you wanna go? Sorry.
No, we have around 20 minutes. We'll end at the top of the hour. So I hand over to you, Neto. And then we can move from
We've given the mic to Mkenya Daima. Ronyo and Ajoga will speak after that. Mkenya Daima, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for this space. I want to speak with a lot of optimism, and I want to start with a quote by Thomas Jefferson that the tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. And I want us to look at where we are right now. I think we are watering down the progress we've made, because I'm seeing we've made a very serious progress, and there might be a few things that we need to correct for us to achieve full revolution, which I know it's coming soon. When I look at things right now, is when this started, we didn't have the church on board, and the level of consciousness of the people, it wasn't there. It was a thing of, it was being considered agency, and a few other guys who have been in the struggle of Kenya for a long time, who also were part of the movement. Right now, it's no longer even a movement. It's the whole country. And I want you guys to see how the temperatures are rising day by day. If ukitembea in what people call the ground, you can feel it. It's no longer when you are being asked. Because I remember when Mandamano was rightly hot, I walked into a bank and we were having a conversation with a lady over there. And we happen to come from the same place, and it was like, hii ya Gen Z imekuwa too much, kwani hawa nini. The other day we're having the same conversation with the same lady, and she has changed her view. She's like, now Zakayo needs to go. So I want you guys to see how the movement, the level of consciousness of the people in the country, and what we are doing is working, and whatever role you are playing right now, just know it's working, because that's the state of the nation at the moment, because we are culminating to there, and the end goal is revolution. We might every day we wake up with a new idea, which is something that has derailed the movement a little bit, because when you look at the Cuban what happened during the Cuban Revolution, they had a clear ideology. You understand, who do we want out? It's Ruto. And why do we want Ruto out? It's because of corruption. We just want to, let's end corruption once and for all, or let's end bad governance once and for all. Let's have a clear ideology, and we wake up to that, because everything else is a sideshow. Whether, which is, it's nice, but it's still a sideshow. We really need to have one clear ideology. The Cubans were, they were anti-imperialism. So we also now need to look at ourselves and know this is the goal that we are going to wake up every day for. So I don't want to belabor what has been said by the rest of the people, but I want you guys to understand that we are slowly getting there. The temperatures on ground, you can all feel them. The level of consciousness of the people, you can now, you can tell, if ukisema twende streets kesho, you will see the numbers will be way bigger. But let's continue pushing the movement. I will end there. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Abdi and Neto.
Thank you very much, Mkanya Daima. Ronyo, Ajoga, and General, please go in that order, so at least to get you going. Ronyo, Ajoga, and General, thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Neto and Hillary, and everybody who is listening. I thank you for the mic. I have been listening and I appreciate everything that everybody has said. For me, what I want to just say, because so many things have been said, even the things that I had in my head. If there is somebody who should be urinating on his pants, is Mr. Ruto or Mr. Kasongo, because somebody said there's no one as powerful as somebody with a mic. It's more powerful than somebody with a gun. And if Ruto has not seen, he should ask Sheikh Hasina, the president of South Korea, or the president of Syria. what people are coming together and speaking, because I think the problem with Kasongo, I don't know if it is him with the problem or the people around him, or even the Mapepo that is saying we have. I think those Mapepos have crowded his mind that he cannot see, because he's not listening to the people. And I don't agree with anybody who says that whatever we are doing here and the conversation we are having here, they are not making any difference. If you go inside a bus or inside a taxi or inside a matatu or inside a plane, or you see any black person, even those who are not from Kenya, and you mention the name Ruto, the conversation will kick. The people start having conversation and stories of how people are going through hell in the country. So looking at and listening to Ruto every day, lying every day, and taking people for granted, paying 500 million for Grammy, and even seeing that even the organization comes and says we do not accept money from foreign countries, and him bringing Bill Gates to vaccinate our cows for years. Since independent, we have never seen a government coming to vaccinate our cows. And somebody should talk. If you have your brother or sister working in the police or in the army, these people should stop behaving like idiots, because they are killing their own brothers and sisters, and we are here talking something that can help them, and the person asking them to kill their own brothers and sisters is saying that he's going to give them uniforms. He's going to give them new uniforms so that he can reward himself that contract and eat billions of money and give them uniform, fake uniform, when these people are living in terrible conditions and they have salaries that some of them, they took mortgages, they are building their own houses, and now he's deducting their salary to build them useless houses that they don't even need and they will never use.
Ranyo, can you land? Thank you.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate. And I would just want to say something to Miguna, because I heard him saying there are some judges who cannot be corrupted. We saw CJ in the inauguration of the DP, the person who was the CS for interior when people were being killed, somebody who should belong in prison. So some of those judges, if they can say what Naola said, if some of them can stand up for Kenyans, we will not be where we are. So thank you so much, and I believe this country should be closed for innovation for all of them, including judges and the members of parliament and the executive. All of them should go, not even home, they should go out of the country. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Ronyo, Ajoga, and then General. Please make it
2
short
minutes.
and sharp.
2 minutes
Yeah,
each, please.
thanks. 2 minutes.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. For me, I will be very brief. Very brief. Let me say that we have felt enough, we have had enough, we have seen enough. Just three things: unity, courage, and mobilization strategy. What we need to do today, tomorrow, does not need tribalism. It is very far from nepotism, and it has to be organic. As much is approaching, if that is the timeline we have given ourselves, we have all the time from today to bring everyone on board who means well for Kenya and ensure we make the house in a united manner. Then we push forward to mobilize every single Kenyan to come out on that very specific day in March to ensure that we remove this big worm. I will leave you with a scenario. We have seen that in our country, there is no one called a leader. We don't have a leader. We have a group of cartels making deals, and so we call them dealers. Where I come from, we have something called an anthill. When it grows to be so big, and you try to dig into it, as you dig and get into the central part of that anthill, you will get a well protected whitish worm. This whitish worm is what we call kasongo. We don't want William Ruto alone out. We want to overhaul the whole governance system that has developed root for now 61 years. I leave you with that, comrade. Let's ponder about it. Unity, courage, and mobilization strategy. Thanks so much. Have a good night and have a nice week ahead.
Thank you very much, Adjoka. General, go ahead.
Honorable
No,
Neto.
not you, Dr. Miguna.
Oh,
No, there's a
okay,
general
yes,
here.
because I don't have anything to add. Okay, thank
There's
you.
General China. General
Okay,
China
okay,
too.
General China.
Thanks. General China. Sorry, I apologize. General China? Okay, I think General China is... General China, can you hear us? Okay, so I really think that if you can't have General China, that was the last hand that was up. I think now we just take the last two out. So General Miguna, you're going to have a chance to make any closing remarks, if at all, and then Professor Kibwana before I hand it over to my co-host, Abdi. So General Miguna, if at all you want to make closing remarks now.
Actually, I just wanted to say thank you very much for everybody for attending and making contributions. I don't have anything else to add. I don't think it would be necessary to repeat myself. And a lot of continua.
Thank you very much, General. And it's coming home. Professor Kibwana.
Also, I don't have anything new to say, but just to thank Hilary, Neto, Abdi, to thank Redemptor, to thank those who have congregated us, and to say, I think, I hope there can be conversation, the leadership of the X spaces, and just to identify, those who, could come together, could be brought together, and with the, the progressive leadership of Gen Zs, and we begin to really go towards convening, physical convening, and have some important debate there. But I think we are going towards reaching where we must reach, so that as we continue talking in the X spaces everywhere else, we are also now committed to what has been called the doing, the other doing. And I think the people, the progressive people, the change makers, the people want a different Kenya. I think they're involved in a good conversation, and I think many people are listening. We know even some from the state, and it's okay. And therefore, congratulations, those who host us. And Miguna, the general, thank you, and all who have really been important in this land.
Thank you very much, Professor Kibwana. Thank you very much, Dr. Miguna, and all the speakers. I think on behalf of the co-hosts and the host, before I hand over to them, I think you've helped us figure out issues around the People's Charter,